Hi, welcome to this Blender video tutorial entitled ExtrudePart2. Many 3D modelers make extensive use of the extrusion tool, and there are many modeling techniques that employ extrusions. To demonstrate some of these techniques, I've placed a circle object in my Blender scene. I will select the circle object and tab into Edit mode. I'll go to Front View. With all the vertices selected, I'll press the E key followed by the Z key and extrude them up a bit along the Z axis. I'll then press the E key followed by the S key, Scale, and extrude them in a bit. I'll rotate my view a bit so that you can see this more clearly. I'll extrude them up again along the Z axis. Then, extrude scale them out a bit. Then extrude them up a bit along the Z-axis, and then extrude scale them back a bit. I will again extrude them up along the Z-axis. Then extrude them up a bit more, and after the extrusion is set, scale the vertices out. Then extrude them up a bit, and after the extrusion is set, scale the vertices in. I will now extrude them up, and after the extrusion is set, scale them wide. I'll go back to my front view and deselect the vertices. I will then box select the bottom vertices. I'll rotate my view so that you can see my object has no bottom, as the original circle had no face. With all the vertices selected, I'll press the E key followed by the S key and extrude these vertices inward. I will then press Ctrl V, which is the vertex menu, and select Merge at Center. This merges the vertices to a single vertex, and as a result, the model has now a faced bottom. I'll deselect the vertices and tab out of Edit mode, and I'll rotate my view. I'll add a modifier to this object by pressing the Modifier Context button in the Properties editor. Here I will add a Subdivision Surface modifier. I'll set the View subdivisions and the Render subdivisions to 3. This sequence of extrusion, scaling, and sometimes moving or rotating is a quite common modeling sequence. I'll now press the File button in the Information Editor header and open a new Blender scene. I will select the camera and lamp objects and delete them. I'll then select the cube object, tab into Edit mode, and subdivide it. I will then add a subdivision modifier to the cube. Set the View subdivisions to 2, and turn on the Apply Modifier Cage in Edit Mode button. I will then deselect the vertices and press Ctrl-Tab and select Face Select. I will also turn on the Limit Selection button so that I do not accidentally select any back faces. I'll select this top right face and extrude it a bit. I'll extrude it a bit again. And after the extrusion is set, I'll grab it and move it a bit upwards. I'll rotate my view to the other side and do the same thing with this face. I'll select these two faces and subdivide them. I'll select these two faces and extrude them in a bit. I'll select these two faces and extrude them out a bit. I'll select these two top faces, grab them, and move them up a bit. I'll select these two bottom faces and extrude them down a bit. I'll select these two front bottom faces and press the Loop, Cut, and Slide button in the 3D Viewport tool panel, and I'll make a loop cut. I'll then select these two faces and extrude them in a bit. Then select these two faces and grab them and move them down a bit. Then select these two faces and scale them in a bit. I'll deselect the faces, tab out of Edit Mode, and set the View Subdivisions on the Subdivision Surface modifier to 4. This process of subdividing a cube, applying a Subdivide Surface modifier, and then extruding, scaling, moving, subdividing, and rotating form the basis of many organic-looking mesh models. I suggest you experiment with this technique. I'll press the File button in the Information Editor header and open a new Blender scene. I will select the cube, camera, and lamp objects and delete them. I'll then add a circle object and scale it down a bit. I'll then go to Front View, and I'll press the R key followed by the Y key followed by 90, then press Enter. This rotates the circle object around the Y-axis 90 degrees. I'll then tab into Edit Mode. In an earlier video tutorial, I demonstrated how we can extrude a vertex by simply holding down the Control key and left-clicking in the display. This is actually true of any sub-object selection in Edit Mode. For instance, here we have a circle object with all the vertices selected. I can extrude the vertices by holding down my Control key and left-clicking anywhere in the 3D display. I can continue to extrude the circle with each left click. Here I will extrude the circle a number of times. I'll rotate my view a bit so that you can see this more dimensionally. I can box select any of these rings of vertices and scale them up a bit. I'll deselect the vertices and add a subdivision surface modifier to smooth the whole object out. An interesting effect occurs when you extrude a dimensional object. Here I will add a UV sphere object to the scene. I'll tab into Edit Mode, and with all the vertices selected, I'll hold down my Control key and left-click on the display, and a duplicate of the sphere is extruded. I'll create a number of these. Note that all of these spheres comprise one object.